Hello there and welcome. Alan Plum here again with a little more from Shed Engineering. To ballast or not to ballast? That is the question. I can hear you saying, has he gone mad? Of course you ballast the tracks. Well yes, okay, we ballast the main line tracks. And it's a generally accepted practice to ballast the sidings, goods yards and shed areas. But I'm raising the question, should all sidings and yards etc. be ballasted? And to be honest, I have taken the decision not to ballast such areas. And I've thought long and hard as to whether I should draw attention to this and actually document it, because what I'm about to say may be seen as quite controversial and go down like a lead balloon. And it's probably not the thing to say to gain friends or subscribers for that matter. But I'm not here to gain friends or subscribers, even though they're appreciated. I'm here to try and contribute to the wealth of knowledge and experience already out there. I'm here for personal satisfaction as much as anything, to try and create something as realistic as possible and share that with everybody else. If what I present is interesting and innovative, like modelling the tunnel, the road system, the working goods yard crane, the water crane, etc., and if what I present has some validity, truth and adds realism, then in theory that's the best reason of any for people to continue to watch. Now most of you know my name and you can't have failed but notice the name Jeff Plum. Jeff is my cousin and this is his fabulous website Plum Loco. Now sorry about the huge loss of definition, that's totally down to me trying to film off the monitor. Jeff has been a lifelong railway enthusiast and photographer, and I think I'm right in saying he's been a lifelong member of the RCTS and must have been on hundreds of RCTS arranged trips. A while back he was even on the Real Rail Simulator going from King's Cross to Stevenage, the lucky chap. And he's had a lifelong career as TV cameraman, so I won't appreciate some of my footage. And it's to Jeff that I owe a huge thank you for giving me permission to use the photographs you've just seen. As I say, it's a great website and a wonderful point of reference. And please don't take the definition and what you see on screen here as an indication of the quality of the photographs, because honestly some of them are just stunning. Look at that, absolutely wonderful. Very unusual shots. That's Jeff on the footplate. This looks like a RCTS trip back in the 60s. RCTS is Railway Correspondence Travel Society. That's Jeff's dad and my Uncle Derek, grand old gentleman. You can click on folder and have mainline steam, or click on something like that and be walking round crew works back in the day. So that's Plum Loco, and a very big thank you to my cousin Jeff Plum. So, to ballast or not to ballast? That is the question. Well, the few photographs you've just seen should have spoken 1,000 words. Thousands of words with a clear message from the past, and with far more meaning or reasoning than I could ever convey. I started train spotting early, from my dad's knee, and I have a good few memories of walking round engine sheds and yards. Just head high to a conrod. There I am in my Sunday best coat, constantly being told by my dad and big brother, don't touch anything. Watch where you're walking. Don't touch that. Don't touch this. Pick your feet up. Mind that puddle. Watch where you're putting your feet. So much so I must have been constantly looking at the ground. I can remember crunchy cinders underfoot, black oily sludge, oily steps leading down to the inspection pits, spanners as big as what I am, rainbow puddles, sacks of oily rags, oil cans with spouts 2 foot long, etc., etc. So much so I can remember all sorts about the ground, but sod all about the locos. And so with photos like that and my own memories, I decided that using ballast around the sidings wasn't the most appropriate material to use. So, because the ground around sidings etc. is dark grey or black, I started with this. It's called fine cinder. Now each one of them granules must be representing a lump measuring 3, 4 or 5 inches, let's say. Well, heavens above, that's the width of a house brick. Do I want my lorry and other vehicles with even smaller wheels stood on a surface that has a texture made up of half bricks? Okay, this is not glued down, but a blind man on a galloping horse could see it would resemble the rest of your ballasting. So, you keep in mind that texture resembling something like half-broken bricks, and you tell me where you see that kind of sharp lumpy texture in any of these photographs. You could say these few photos are not representative of sidings and yards in general, or across the country, or across the world for that matter. Well, you could say that, but I don't think very many will. So I hope you're starting to see my point and opinion and consider it's got a certain degree of validity. Now I could have ballasted the whole area around the sidings in the normal way, then tried to weather it to make it look more realistic. Well, to me that seemed a bit pointless, seeing as there would be no ballast left showing, and to me no amount of weathering would get the ground around the sidings looking anything like the ground you see in these photos. Because again, in my opinion, there's another huge issue that in most cases gets overlooked, and that's the height of the ground level in relation to the rails. So let's look at and consider the ground levels, and let's consider if any of the average weathering effects would get your average ballast looking anything like the ground levels you see here. So there you've got the ground level right up past the chairs. There's very few sleepers showing. Same again there, smooth and trodden down, cinders and ash compacted right up to the chairs. Hardly any sleepers showing, just ghosts of sleepers, and again ground level right up to the chairs. I think that's probably ash and debris from the smoke box, but in general the ground level is right up past the chairs, cinder and ash completely trodden down, leaving quite a smooth surface with very little texture. Same again there, nothing there resembling a surface covered with half broken house bricks. This photo demonstrates my point perfectly. Presumably this is a main line on the left, but as soon as you get across into the sidings, then ash, clinker and cinder, general debris has compacted down into the ballast, and you've got a very smooth surface right up to the sleepers. And again a clear distinction between the texture of the main line and the sidings. Ash, cinder, clinker turned into a sludge and right up past the chairs, but still not resembling a sharp lumpy texture. Here we have got some texture, but this is mostly fallen coal from the coaling stage, but look at the ground level again, right up past the chairs. And this doesn't just relate to the steam era. Sidings weren't suddenly reballasted. Let me try and find you a clip taken a lot later. I'd just like to show you a couple of clips taken much later in 1990. This is by a chap called Robert Masterman. His channel is absolutely fabulous. He does some superb railway photography, both mainline and preserved etc., and I can highly recommend his channel. But this is also a lovely video if anybody's modelling a diesel depot. If we just have a quick flick through, but it shows you the inside of a diesel maintenance depot. Now here, can you see the ground, little bits that you can see? Even after all these years, you've still got that cinder and ash remaining that's built up right up to the sleepers. There again, taken outside. Remember, this is now 1990. It hasn't been reballasted with fresh ballast. You can see that it's filled up between the sleepers and again right up to the chairs. Again, there you have got a little bit of texture of ballast, but again none of the sleepers are showing. That's rare archive footage inside a real motive power depot. Thank you very much, absolutely brilliant footage. That's Robert Masterman's channel. So I have chosen not to ballast, and here I'm just scraping down some building foam using a saw blade, then some water and PVA, approximately 50-50. Mix that together. Then I'm using some Kiddies poster paint, just £1 a tube from Hobbycraft. Mix that in so it's well distributed, and then you can add the granulated foam. Now I used it like this and then picked out the bigger lumps as I was using it. In actual fact, it's a little bit too coarse. You will see in some of the finished pictures how coarse the lumps are, and in actual fact I've used some plastic netting to sieve the granules to get a finer filler, and I've actually gone over it. So then apply some neat PVA to the base, and here you can see how flexible the filler actually is. Now if you're going to use this method, then please do your own experiments. It may be a case that the coarser filler is perfectly alright on 00, because obviously if you want to build the level up to a realistic level, you've got to use quite a bit of filler. But just experiment so that you get a feel for it and to make sure that it's right for you. Now it seems very user friendly. There's lots of techniques you can use. There, right in the centre, you can see one of the bigger lumps that I was talking about, and surprisingly it retains some of its foam-like characteristics in being spongy and soft, so hopefully it'll also be quite flexible and shouldn't crack on board joints or with any expansion and contraction. Obviously you have to be careful working around points. You don't want them gluing up. I'm not sure how I'll do the middle of the points as yet. I shall experiment with some grey PVA dropped in between and see how that works. But should you get some around the points, the soft nature of it once it's dry, I suspect that it should be quite easy to clean off, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. Now I have seen concrete areas being made using white plaster filler, but I've never seen anything quite like this that might be considered quite radical. And it felt like quite a big step forward, but here I think I'm gaining in confidence and putting it on a lot thicker, and as you can see I'm using some cling film over the top to try and smooth down the surface and get a smoother finish. and as you can see, the cling film pulls away very nicely. You wouldn't be able to do that with ordinary plaster filler, and again it pulls away very nicely and leaves quite a nice surface, and that surface might well be okay for double O. And here I'm using a little beanbag dog toy. This was ideal. It compressed the filler quite nicely and squashed it in, and I was getting much better results with that. So there's lots of different techniques you can use. It's just a matter of experimenting. Also, what I consider to be another advantage over white filler that just has a coloured coating applied is that this filler is self-coloured all the way through, meaning if it did crack it would hardly show, any surface damage would hardly show, and you can make minor adjustments when it's dry by scraping, cutting, drilling and sanding, and you still maintain a very similar colour. My only concern is getting a colour match with the second, third and fourth batches, etc. But even with other finishes you would have to match up to similar areas done previously. And here I'm trying to demonstrate removing the filler so that you can see its texture and how easy it is to remove. Well, not easy. It's still, don't get me wrong, it's still tedious, but it's quite soft in nature, and as you can see, quite easy to scrape off. Now while we watch that, let me just say, as I said earlier, I fully accept that this might go down like a lead balloon. I thought long and hard whether to actually document my personal opinion, because it could be seen as rather controversial and flying in the face of the generally accepted idea of ballasting sidings, yards and sheds, etc. And I'm not trying to suggest the more traditional approach is wrong. Modelling is a very personal thing, and everyone has a different take on it, and a different point of view as to what is actually representative and realistic to them. I'm just putting forward my personal point of view. As with the working water crane, I thought taking on water, an important part of everyday railway life that's not often modelled, and my attempt here is no different really. I just think it's a big part of railway scenery, and I'm just having a go at modelling and representing it as I see it in photographs and remember it as a lad. A photograph after the first coat, which was quite coarse but gives quite a random surface effect. This is applying a smoother coat that has been sifted down through plastic netting. Some may consider matching the colour between mixers a problem, but you would normally go over the surface with paint or weathering to finish it off. And here we have some photos before any weathering to try and give a direct side-by-side comparison to the real ground, hopefully showing what I think is a fairly good representation of real colour and texture, as well as depicting quite a realistic ground level. Now some of the texture may still be too coarse, and obviously you'll have some imperfections from the application, but with the nature of the filler it makes it very easy to sand or scrape down, as you can see here. As you see here, you could also add minor detail like tyre tracks very easily, or you could spread a thicker layer and quickly imprint a road, giving you the curb edges, pavements or sidewalks, and even the drains. Once dry, with it sanding so easily, you should be able to add further detail like flagstones, and with painting and weathering soon have an industrial type road that's a bit rough and ready round a car park or something like that. I didn't want to waste the coarser foam granules after using the finer stuff on the sidings, so here I've added green paint, and I think the rounded texture of the granules gives quite a good instant low foliage or grass effect, especially for N-gauge. Much better than adding spiky sawdust in previous fillers that I've experimented with, although in double O you may still want to use static grass. Back in the 50s, farmers didn't have the sophisticated hedge cutting equipment they have today, giving very uniform edges. Hedgerows were cut and laid, cutting halfway through the saplings and bending them over. So here I'm trying to create what I think is a proper old-fashioned hawthorn hedgerow. And considering it's all the same colour, I think that it's coming along quite nicely. Once that's touched up with different coloured greens, I think that could look quite effective. The beauty of this hedge is just how robust it is, which I was quite surprised at, and I'm trying to demonstrate here. Even if a piece does break off, with it being self-coloured all the way through, I'm sure it would hardly be noticed. So there we go. Now I'm not claiming this fillet is new. In actual fact, very few things are new, it's just that we haven't come across them. And remember, for every one of us posting videos, there will be perhaps 100 or even 1,000 chaps watching, perhaps of the older generation, who haven't got into video cameras and uploading stuff. So there could be thousands of layout masterpieces out there that no one has ever seen, along with their techniques and knowledge that goes with them. So not ballasting the sidings and yard areas may be commonplace for all I know. But I hope you found something of interest, possibly even thought-provoking. For any viewers who haven't got YouTube accounts and want to comment or ask a question, my email is in the description, along with a link to Jeff's great website, Plum Loco. And again, many thanks. I'm sure most of the viewers will appreciate the use of your photos, Jeff. Many thanks also to the continued flurry of new subscribers. That's very much appreciated. I hope I haven't repeated myself a dozen times over. And as always, many thanks for watching.